I didn't think it made any sense to go Kodai Senga in the CS. You had all your best pitchers on regular rest or extra rest. They could have pushed him back, and yet the guy who pitched 2 games this year, one of which was 2 innings, the other of which he got hurt, he started game 1 of the championship series and laid an egg. David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza. Now, it's just one game, but David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza made a big mistake.
I wouldn't let Kodai Senga pitch again the rest of the playoffs here. Unless, and I know that they don't want to deviate from this, which is why one of the reasons he started, if he's amenable to maybe a bit of a role change and maybe coming out of the bullpen, I know the Mets don't want to mess with that, and I get it. Seems to be a bit of a creature of habit here, but he was awful. And, like, there's performances where you're like Rodon melting down, right? In the 4th inning, a couple games ago, obviously a few days ago. Like, that's one thing to dissect, but he came out with great stuff. Last night, and then just wilted. Kodai Senga was, at first his fastball was 5 miles per hour down, which at this level is very alarming. And he threw 30 pitches, 10 were strikes. I mean, some of you know what I mean. You go to Game Changer, you look at a 9 or a 10-year-old's box score, that's the ratio. 30 pitches, 10 strikes, not even a good pitcher at 9 or 10. So I'm not messing with Senga. However long the Mets go, that's it. You got your shot. You were awful. The Mets did make a mistake. Now, it's not a fatal one, but it does feel ominous. Last night was ugly.
Yeah, but there's no reason to start him. Like, I'd love to see their logic. And also, it doesn't, like, the trickle-down effect of it, the Mets had to use now 4 relievers last night. All right, Young, you don't necessarily care about, although he wasn't bad. And against this Dodger team, with the lefties, you might need Young more than you relied on him in the past, which wasn't anything at all. So, and then they get Buto in that game, Peterson for 2 1/3, Garrett, all those guys won't be available today. You hope that you don't need them because Minaya, you expect to go 7+, maybe more. And again, we'll discuss today's game a little bit later on, whatever it may be. But for last night, also you have Senga set up then to pitch Game 5, which now is going to be in question. So what's going to happen? Is Peterson going to go in Game 5? And it just it didn't make any sense. Your best pitchers all year long, Minaya, Severino, Quintana, even Peterson, you had all these guys lined up. You could go at it any way you want. And they start Kodai Senga. This guy flies in. He's been hurt all year long. He decides finally he wants to pitch. He doesn't want to come back. He's not 100%. All of a sudden they make the postseason. Senga wants to pitch. It made sense in Game 1 because they didn't have any choice in the division series. This one, to me, when I first saw it, I was like, what? And then it's, oh, no, well, this is the manager's plan. This is what the team's going to do. Now, they've been great. You do have to trust them, but they showed you last night they're not perfect. Like you said, series is not over. Far from over. Yeah. But that was it didn't make any sense. It was a stupid decision to start a guy in Game 1 against that team that's pitched 2 games this year.
And he was literally awful from the outset. I mean, he was off by a 1.5 feet. I said before, it's really one of the worst losses the Mets have had in a while, and that's not hyperbolic. You go back the night that we were at, ironically, September 20th, they got knocked around by the Phillies 12-2. They lost a game around the August 20-something, 7-zip to San Diego. And the last game in the Seattle series in early August, they got knocked around as well. Other than that, they either won or they lost really, really tight games. It's one game. It's one game.
Yeah.
But what you say about how this, the residual impact here, because now the bullpen's a little taxed here. Now the Dodgers have great momentum. Flaherty, by the way, you got to tip the cap. Flaherty was amazing.
Oh, yeah. Dodgers can't pitch. Oh, Dodgers have no pitching. Okay. Yeah. Give me a break, Dodgers. Look at their names. Like, I know Walker Buehler and Flaherty and Yamamoto maybe haven't been as good as they have been in the past or expected to be. They're still studs.
Yeah, and they got a great lineup, especially, 1 through 5, 1 through 6. Now, the bad news was last night happened. Good news is this Mets team is specialized in comebacks. Now, that specialization is usually within games, not necessarily within series, because they haven't, they won the first game against Philly, so I do believe that their resolve will be there. Listen, I also know that, or strongly think the Dodgers are better, which is why I picked the Dodgers to win in a deep series. Doesn't mean the Mets can, but I'll tell you what, Sal, if they don't win today, and this is not about predictions or hot takes, like in my heart of hearts, if they don't win today, especially if Minaya isn't really good, I think it's over at that point. I think they lose fast.
That's where we're going to disagree. Even as frustrating as last night is, it's just one game. I'm not going nuts about it. I'm like, oh, no. What, you didn't think the Dodgers were good? I knew the Dodgers were good. So maybe more so than others who kept saying, oh, Dodgers, no pitching. No, bull crap. Look at their roster. The Dodgers are freaking loaded. So this was never going to be easy. And I do expect Sean Manaea to – see, here's the thing. The Mets are going to have to hit. That's the big question mark. Could they hit? This is not going to be a series where they keep it close, and then boom, late score runs. It's not that they can't score against the Dodgers bullpen. It's that the Dodgers
right now, nobody's scoring off the Dodgers bullpen. 33 straight innings.
Right, but that's not my biggest issue. My biggest issue is that the Dodgers lineup is so good that you're not going to be able to keep them at bay early.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So a game, instead of it being 1-0 like it was with Philadelphia, or whatever, 3-0 or 3-1, those games are going to be 5-0, 6-0, and then start to snowball the wrong way like you saw last night. So the Mets bats are going to have to hit. I do think they'll bounce back today, and I feel comfortable about saying that. But even if they lost, I still don't think the series is over. This is a long series. It's not a best of 5, not a best of 3. It's a best of 7 against a very good team. The Mets have been resilient all year long. They're going to be just fine. Does that mean they're going to win a series? No, but I'm not going to overreact to last night, and I'm certainly not going to overreact even if they lost game 2. The series will come back here, and I expect the Mets to be better. Now, what's the old saying? The series doesn't start until the road team wins a game. So let's see what happens here. If the Mets could go out there and get one today, they're in great shape. I mean, who knows? They could bury the Dodgers in 5. We don't. Just because it seemed one way last night doesn't mean it's going to be the case moving forward. Obviously, you want to win today, but even if they were to lose BT by some chance, I still would not give up hope that this Mets team could come back in this series.
No, nobody would abandon hope in the Mets. They've earned it. I mean, as much as any team in baseball, the records, the stats, the resolve, the togetherness, they've earned that. It would feel heavy to me the way the first, if they lose tonight, the way the first game went. And then if they were to lose, and again, particularly like if you lose 3-2, 4-3, whatever, but like if Benaya's average, which I don't expect because he's been basically unhittable since he came to the different arm slot. Obviously, 21 starts have been great, and he was great last time out. So I do think he puts up some zeros and gives his team a chance to win. But listen, when you look bad, you look bad, and there's no way around. The Mets really did look bad last night. It's one game. You got a lot of ball to go. Senga was a mess. Winker was in space on the bases when they finally string together 2 knocks. I don't know what the hell that was truly one of the oddest baseball base running decisions that I've ever seen. Like, I've seen guys make mistakes born out of aggression. I've seen guys make mistakes born out of being passive. I don't know that I've ever seen a guy make 2 mistakes on the same play where he was both aggressive and passive, because he turns the base aggressively. He's steaming toward third. He's going to make it by a mile, and then for some reason he stops. He throws behind him, and then he gave up on the play. Like, he actually stopped running when he was about 6 or 7 feet away from third. Ugly game, bad stuff. Flush it, come back, and show us the team that you've been for a while.
The only thing about today, and we'll get these calls in here, 888-808-1019. The only thing about today that would be discouraging if they were to lose would be that they have their best going against a bullpen game.
No doubt.
So this is a game where, forget about the result. Like, if you go down 0-2 in a series, you're not over, especially when you're coming home here for 3 in a row and the way the Mets have been at home. It's not over. But because you have your ace and you're facing their bullpen, you would think that this is a game that the Dodgers should be vulnerable, and you want to get it. And then if they do, the entire outlook of the series changes from the way most people feel now to what they'll feel at 7, 8 o'clock tonight if the Mets are able to get that win and come back here at 1-1.
Well, not only do I think they need to get the win, but they've got to protect the bullpen today. So it's like, don't get me wrong, you'll take an 8-7 shootout if that's whatever,
well, they've got their best available. Maton, Stanek, and Diaz. I mean, that's what you're looking at.
But again, the Mets played more back-to-back games than the Yankees did in the DS, but there's less time in between games in the championship series than in the DS. Not a ton, but it could impact downstream in terms of the bullpen being fresh. Just go out there. You got your ace. Hit the reset button, flush it, let's go.
BT and Sal on the Fan, our friends at Town Fair Tire. Remind you that at Town Fair Tire, you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Jeff is in the Bronx. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, Sal. Hey, BT. How you guys doing this morning?
How are you, Jeff?
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Ricky Henderson batting leadoff today. Listen, I want to really defend the Senga move. I know it didn't work out, but a couple of quick points on it. One is that you have a fully rested bullpen behind him. If you start Senga game 2, you don't necessarily know that. We forget about it because we're so used to it, but there's no ghost runner in the playoffs. You could have a 20-inning game, and then you got a pitcher going the next day that could only go 2 or 3 innings. So you start Senga for the game,
Jeff,
game
Jeff,
1.
I don't want to lose bullpen. Jeff, hold on. I hear you, and I think that's a fairly logical take. I truly do. you got to think down the road. That's what the great managers do. But the Dodgers, I mean, their bullpen, I mean, they're going on 33 straight innings without a run. They got a bullpen game coming up today. So I understand preserving the Mets bullpen, but I still think that even though the Dodgers have better pitchers, I think in the bullpen, they're probably more fried. So I think it's a wash.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying that if you would have started Minaya yesterday, let's say he goes 6-7 innings, and you have a tight game, maybe it goes to extra innings, maybe you got to use 3 or 4 guys to get out of it.
Yeah.
Now you're going to game 2 with a guy that you're not expecting to go long.
Whoa. Why are you assuming Senga should start game 2?
Well, when did you want to start him?
Game 4, if at all. What do you mean? When do you want to start him?
Yeah, but Sal, if you start him game 4, you're piggybacking him between Quintana, who's a 5 or 6 inning pitcher. You got to remember, 3, 4, and 5 are 3 games in a row.
Senga, Jeff, is also piggybacked by David Peterson. Like, they're a tandem. That's the deal. It's supposed to be Senga to Peterson. You know why that's the case? Because they know Senga is a 2 or 3 inning pitcher. I mean, that's so you know where you're, and they're choosing to start him. Otherwise, you could just start David Peterson and say, well, Peterson could give us 5 or 6, and you have to go with the bullpen. Like, this is not, you're not placating Kodai Senga here and trying to maneuver your whole rotation around him. You certainly shouldn't be. So,
but you're setting yourself up. You're setting yourself up. Well, if he pitches in game 1 and he gives you 3 innings, you then have Peterson in game 1.
Right.
You then flip it to game 5. Game 5 is right before an off day. Right. So you can go all out with your bullpen knowing you have the day off the next day. If you pitch Senga any other game, you don't have that logic set up. You're also coming in with a fully rested bullpen.
Yeah. Honestly, you make some really good calls. Thanks for the call there, buddy. You laid out well. Bottom line is this. Whatever the Mets planned on having happen, and however they strategized this and plotted this out, the fact that Senga couldn't throw a strike subverted the plan.
Look, here's the thing. You could plan it all you want and say, well, we're going to need you don't know what's going to happen. Sean Manaea could start today and get lit up in the first inning. Then what? Then your bullpen was taxed yesterday, and now you're going to be even deeper today. Don't think too hard. That's where these analytics and data and all that nonsense, it gets in the way of things. Here's all you need to know. My gut instinct, when I read Andy Martino's call, I actually texted him about it. I'm like, what? Why would they be considering doing this game? Like, I thought Andy was so far off in his thoughts.
Yeah.
He said, now obviously it's an educated guess, but he said, I think it was Thursday night, whatever it was.
Yeah, I remember we talked about it.
Yeah, we came in, and you're like, it's not a bad. I'm like, no, I was fired up about it. I was annoyed because my initial read was, what? Senga game 1. The only reason why I started game 1 in the first place in a division series because it was a necessity. Now you have everything lined up. Why wouldn't you just go Manaea, Severino, Quintana, and then Senga/Peterson? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. You finally got the breathing room you needed. You won a series. You put them away without having to go to game 5. You have a few off days. Everything can be set up perfectly. And you're going to go with Kodai Senga? Game 1, that makes no sense. And then Andy gave his thoughts and why he thought that would be the case. And sure enough, that's exactly what the Mets ended up doing. It didn't add up to me. You're thinking too hard about it. Manaea's your best. You pitch him game 1, 5, and you hope he can come back maybe out of the bullpen in game 7. Severino's your second best. You go with him. You go with Quintana 3, Peterson 4. However you want to work, or Senga and Peterson in 4. I would have been fine with that. Senga game 1 made no sense.
Well, the mistake is that the Mets failed to adjust their schedule based on the breathing room that they had in terms of being able to regenerate for a couple days. Like, they were still operating as if this was, that tight schedule where, again, out of necessity. That's why Senga pitched in Philly.
And it's why I was okay with it.
Totally.
In game 1 in Philly. Because we
were surprised. We're like, okay, here you go.
The options were David Peterson, who just pitched in Milwaukee, even if it was for an inning or whatever.
Yep.
He just pitched on Thursday. Is he going to then start game 1 on Saturday? Tyler McGill or Kodai Senga?
Yeah, we talked about it.
So to me, the best option then was, hey, Kodai Senga and see what you could do. And they looked and went, he was okay for 2. I mean, he did allow a home run. Guy pitched 2 innings, he gave up 1 run, and that's can't wait to get back to Senga for game 1 of the championship series. But in this particular case, they had any option that they wanted, and they went with Kodai Senga. It was a mistake. Look, it happens. It was a mistake. Stan is in Westport, Connecticut. What's up, Stan?
Hey guys, you bring up a lot of really good points, but look, statistically, they tried to do the same thing that worked before. And if you think about it, Peterson wasn't as sharp as he was coming in after Senga either. So it kind of compounded. And then the bats go silent. Mendoza doesn't figure all those things are going to happen at the same time, and they made 2 errors, and Winker had that blunder. Listen, I did the same thing, but I was 13 years old, and I was a bench warmer in Babe Ruth, so I know what it feels like to get caught in that spot where you didn't mean it, but he's an MLB player. But listen, I think the scoreless streak is actually the Mets' best friend because statistically, baseball slumps and streaks. That's just the way it is. So if they have 30 innings, Mets will break out of that on the Dodgers dying.
33.
It's going to happen.
All right.
And hopefully it happens in bunches. And as you guys said, this team is very, very resilient all year. The biggest problem, though, at the plate, they're reverting to taking too many strikes. And then they end up waving at these breakers out of the zone because they have to, and that's what really destroys them. Vientos looked like he never played Major League Baseball before.
Pardon me, Sal. Listen, quickly on Vientos. I do think their approach changed a little bit. They were hunting first pitches for a while up until yesterday. Vientos, who I really like, and we all do, he's got this hole, and it's that slider and that soft stuff that is on the catcher's right shin guard. Now, that is a tough pitch for anybody to lay off, especially a young kid who's still going through some adjustments. If he's not going to necessarily tighten it up now, maybe intermittently, but he's not going to solve it now. If he really goes to the laboratory this offseason, which he will, all right, and he closes up that hole in his game, I think Vientos is going to be an all-star a couple times. That's how good he is. But he's got to fix that. That pitch kills him.
Obviously, BT was more than just Kodai Senga last night. Vientos, the offense, Alonso, whatever. The sloppiness on the base pads, defensively, Senga, that decision set things off the wrong way. And also, having David Peterson, Peterson wasn't good either. Well, that's got to be a part of it. Peterson's not your best pitcher either. I don't understand the logic of why you wouldn't go with Garrett Cole would be pitching game 1 tonight for the Yankees if he were on normal rest.
If he could.
They didn't have any choice. It was either Clark Schmidt or Carlos Rodon. They figured, let's get Rodon at home.
Not all of them figured that. We'll get to that later. There was a big organizational debate. Again, we'll do that later. But they were split on Rodon or Schmidt.
Not an easy call, but ended up going maybe thinking more comfortable. Hey, game 1, all right, it's game 1 of a best of 7, and we'd rather have him at home. Let's see how he can harness that emotion, whatever. We'll get more into that, of course. But point is, you go with I've never seen this before. I honestly cannot recall a time. Generally, what happens in the postseason is you're all over the place because of these series. You play 4 games, you play 5 games, you're trying to finish up and get into the postseason. That you don't have your best guy lined up, which is why you would go with somebody else. If you have your ace lined up on normal rest, when have you not pitched him in game 1 of a postseason series? I don't know if I've ever seen that before.
That's a good question.
And the Mets not only chose to avoid their best pitcher, who's been Sean Manaea, they went with a guy who Max is going to give you 3-4 innings, and he's pitched 2 games all year long. It just made no sense from the get-go.
Okay, now Manaea's numbers against the Dodgers are not good. 7.09 ERA in 11 games, but he's a totally different pitcher.
That's what I mean.
He's throwing harder. His slot's different. He's added the sweeper. So anything that he's done prior to tonight against, to me, is insignificant. And I'm not making an excuse for the Mets because they messed up and they got to fix this, right? And I'm with you. But Senga was pretty awesome last year, and I get it. When was your ace bypassed in game 1 when he was on normal rest? The answer very well might be never. But how many times has a team at this stage of a season had their best pitcher from the year before come back so late, and you're doing this juggle that gives you multiple things to think about that ordinarily don't happen?
Understood. That was part of the decision. We mentioned it. We get the Yankees game 1 tonight at the stadium, BT.
Let's go,
I know
baby.
You're fired up about that. Carlos Rodon going against a Cleveland team I think is going to be better than most people thought. A lot of the talk last week, Subway Series this, Subway Series that, kind of bypassing both the Dodgers and the Guardians, and I think that's a big mistake. We'll get more into the Yankees as well. You got the Jets Monday Night Football. We got the Giants game to react to. What a time in New York sports. 888-808-1019.